Welcome to Tell Your Story, the podcast. We are your co-hosts, Jenny McIntyre, pastor and emotional intelligence coach, and Marybeth Stegenga, counselor and relationship coach. We believe that everyone has an extraordinary story to share. Together, we invite you to embark on a journey of self-discovery as we unravel the profound wisdom that lies in looking back to propel us forward. Prepare to be moved and inspired by tales of unwavering resilience, personal growth, and the pursuit of authentic living, including your own. Join us as we delve into the transformative power of storytelling. Because when you tell your story, you have the potential to change your life. And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you can be inspired.
Hello, my friend, Pastor Jenny over there in Florida, and I'm over here in Tucson. Welcome to Tell Your Story podcast. I think we're on episode number 6. I'm Marybeth. I'm a counselor and relationship coach, and my friend over there with the beautiful eyelashes this morning is... There we go. Jenny McIntyre, who is a pastor and a coach and a soon-to-be published author. So welcome to the podcast, and we are talking about the power of story and how it can heal you, do some good emotional healing. So welcome.
Welcome. We're very happy to be here with you, Marybeth. How's the weather in Arizona?
So it actually yesterday was kind of rainy, which is weird because Tucson is the desert, so we don't get a lot of rain. So yesterday was kind of rainy, but warm. And by warm, I mean like 70. The difference between here, I used to live in Florida, so I can talk about that. In Florida, you almost can wear shorts year round.
Pretty much.
Because it stays pretty warm. You do have a couple of chilly days, but in Arizona, especially in Tucson, it can get pretty chilly in the winter, like below 30 degrees. And so you can wear sweaters and stuff for a short period of time. But we're swinging into spring, and probably in the next maybe like 6 to 8 weeks, we'll start hitting triple digits again. So I'm excited about that, though. I love the hot. Bring on the hot.
It's been unusually chilly here in Florida. We are still in the 50s, and I know a lot of people are hating on me that I can call that chilly, but I came from Wisconsin, I came from Panama to Wisconsin, and so I used to say, oh, those Floridians, they're such wimps. And John and I used to parade ourselves in shorts and t-shirts in the 50s. Not anymore. My blood has been permanently impacted, and now I consider 50 chillies. So what can I say?
Yeah. Yes, it's true. It's true. You do adjust to the weather. Just like now when it's 110 over here, I'm like, no big deal. It's 110. Yeah.
I have a very hard time wrapping my mind around 110 because I come from a very hot tropical country, and probably the maximum was the 90s, and that was super hot. So I cannot wrap my mind around 100 some degrees, girl.
Yeah, it is. I had my sister-in-law came to visit when we first moved to Phoenix, because we moved to Phoenix first, and we got there and it was 119 degrees on the first day that we arrived. And she came to help us get settled in our house, and she's like, is this what hell feels like? Because if this is what hell feels like, I do not want to go there, because it was just so hot. And I was like, well, maybe, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. So yeah. Do you live in hell, Marybeth?
I mean, it's pretty hot, but I love it. My husband and I just saying the other day, we're like, oh, bring on the 100-degree temperatures again. We're sick of the cold. So
well, I hope you don't love it enough to like now want to go to hell on a permanent basis.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think hell would come with some other things besides just hot temperatures. Yeah.
And I think heaven will have the perfect weather, right? The perfect balance between your hell and my whatever you want to call this.
Yes, exactly.
But getting into the topic, I hope that our audience enjoyed our little detour, and leave us comments about what the weather is looking like, where you are and where you are joining us from. That'll be very exciting for us to look at. But today we are going to talk a little bit about, we've spoken about our stories. Last time we spoke about our story timeline, and today we start using that framework on how to share our story, which you came up with, Marybeth, which I think is pretty darn powerful. And before we turn it to that, I just want to remind our audience, this is the reason that we are here. We are here to strengthen one another and to encourage one another with the power of our stories. As Marybeth was indicating last week, and I was indicating too, one of the things that helped her or make her think about this podcast was she was the editor of my book, It's My Life and I'll Cry If I Want to. And she saw those stories there in that book, and she saw the power of those stories and how those individuals work their way back to God or work their way to a better relationship with God and to those that surround them through the power of their stories. Obviously, Marybeth, as a counselor, myself as a life coach, we both have seen the power that sharing the story has had on us, but also on the people that we help. And so we want to teach you how to do that. Maybe so far your story has just been a source of sadness, a source of regret, a source of understanding why you are the way you are. But your story can do so much more, because it can go beyond transforming your own life. It can transform somebody else's. This world makes a lot of emphasis on the self and what you can do, and you have the power to do this and you have the power to do that. But in reality, we live very isolated lives. And living isolated lives is not always a good idea. And if you're struggling with depression, trauma, anxiety, or whatever it is that you may be suffering to, these can be very isolating feelings. And you can feel at times like you're the only person that's going through it. And there's nothing, I believe, can be more prejudicial to someone than believing I'm the only person that's going through it. Everybody looks so good, because what is it that we post normally in our social media, and we present to the world the happy pictures, But I'm a crime case aficionado, and I can guarantee you there's a lot of those people that murder each other or hurt each other that just a few days prior were looking really smiley and funny and happy on social media. And so all this to say what we've been saying all along: there is power in your story. There is power in my story. And if we keep it inside of us, then they're not going to touch anybody. And so, as I said, a few weeks back when we started this journey, Marybeth came up with what I believe is a brilliant framework on how to share that story. I think it creates some structure, but it's also a fun way, and it's catchy terms that I think are going to allow all of us to truly embrace the framework, and that's going to allow us to talk about our own stories and understand better the stories that are being shared with us. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Marybeth, who's going to talk to us about that framework on how to share our stories.
All right. Well, you're always good for my self-esteem when you say things like brilliant, and so it makes me feel really smart.
100% meant.
Okay, so we started, the first part of the framework is to do the story inventory or the story timeline, and we talked last time about do it in a way that works best for you. You can, do a brain dump and put it all on paper. You can dump around from past to present to future. If you want to be structured, you can do, an actual timeline. So do what works best for you, and to get your stories down in some form, because you have to be able to. And I do think you have to write it in order to be able to look back to finish the framework. So it's one thing to think it, but I think it's another way to write it or record it or something so that you can go back and revisit it. And so then the second part of that is, and like Jenny said, we came up with catchy terms. I think both you and I like catchy terms for things.
We do.
So I think
we're fun that way.
I think we like that. So we talked about identifying themes in your life from your story timeline, and we called those, what are your rotten eggs, right? So what are the stinky themes, the rotten eggs that come from your stories? And both Jenny and I have identified those. Some of the themes for me is loss, and not feeling, and feeling like I had to meet other people's needs, and feeling like I'm not enough. So those are some themes in my life. And then Jenny, some themes or rotten eggs from your story were what?
I need to earn my right to be here. I need to earn love by what I do and what I can produce. There's no worth in me outside of what I do or what I can produce. I'm rejected, I'm abandoned, nobody wants me, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And so you want to kind of look at some of those themes and identify them. And it is really amazing when you write out your story, it becomes abundantly clear what some of those themes are. And I'm not exactly sure why that happens. Why do we continually bump up against the same themes? Like I have a ton of loss in my life, and other people can't relate to that, right? I don't come from a background of a lot of childhood trauma. And so that's not a theme that I bumped up against, but it is themes that pop up, and it does sort of kind of pop up in various aspects of your life until you kind of identify them and work through them a little bit. Okay, so that is the rotten egg or the theme in your life. And then the third part, so we have story inventory, we have rotten eggs or themes, and then we have broken records, we call them, or your core beliefs or thought distortions, thinking errors, you can call them different kinds of things. And again, some of my core beliefs were I'm not smart enough. I think because of loss in my life, I have like almost like people are temporary, like people don't stick around for very long. So that's kind of like a core belief. So, getting into a relationship can sometimes be hard because it's like, oh, they're not going to be part of my life forever anyway. That was kind of like a core belief for me. And then I know some of you, we just, you identified a couple too, is just like, I'm not enough, or I have to earn my right, or, some of those core beliefs that pop up in your life, right? And so, what are then the consequences? So, part of looking at those core beliefs, what are the consequences of having those in your life?
So, Marybeth, before you go to the next point, just so that our audience can understand, so rotten eggs would be like the actual like themes, right? Like
yeah, so rotten egg is like a theme in my life is loss.
Okay.
Okay, so like I lost my uncle and cousin in a plane crash, and both my grandparents, and I've lost two brothers and all my parents. I lost a best friend, my brother's fiance. So all of this death.
Themes. What?
So that's like
so it's almost like events.
Yes, and it's like I think for sure a theme for you is trauma.
Okay.
Like yours is a trauma theme because you had a lot of childhood trauma. Some other themes could be like like chaos can be a theme if you live in a chaotic home. So I just always change can be a theme. Nothing ever stayed the same. Everything was constantly changing.
Got it.
So it's kind of like an overarching thing that happens again and again and again.
And then the broken records would be like the consequences.
So yeah, so as a result of like I said, as a result of my having a lot of loss, one of my core beliefs is that, people are temporary because they don't stick around forever. I've lost a lot of people through death. One of my themes was like my dad being kind of critical throughout my life into my adulthood. And as a result of that, and as a result of not doing very well in school, as a result of that, one of my core beliefs is I'm not smart. So you take like the theme and then it causes kind of like the core belief or the thought distortion. And then you can take it another level down, almost in the same of broken records, though, is what are the consequences of that? And so I talked about in my undergraduate part of college, I wanted to be a nurse, but because I had the core belief of I'm not smart enough, that I didn't even attempt to do it because I was like, oh, I'll never be able to pass all of the classes that need to be done in order for me to graduate and become a nurse.
Which is crazy because now you're a doctor.
Right, right, right. So it's like, it's silly. It's kind of silly. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's so real to you. And it wasn't that I was even saying to myself, it's almost operating underneath the surface, right? It's not necessarily like that's coming out of my mouth, but it's underneath the surface of like, so I don't think you were running around going like, I need to earn my love, but it was operating underneath the surface of your life.
At a very subconscious level, for sure.
Yeah. And so part of the healing process becomes when you can identify that and say, oh, I really think I'm not smart enough because of this, this, and this. And as a result of that, I hold myself back in certain areas or have.
Next week, when we when we bring back our clients, right? Marisa and your Susan, like I'm eager to share with you like Marisa's rotten eggs and broken records, because you're absolutely right. Like one of the key things when we work on emotional healing is to unearth those things that we cannot easily see. And when we unearth them, there's power, because all of a sudden this was like a hidden enemy that you couldn't see, and all of a sudden it comes in full force at you, and you can actually now call it, name it, and work with it.
Yeah. And when it pops up, so I went on a mission in my life to, when I identified that in my life and when I realized it would show up, I could then speak truth and be like, wait, I am smart enough. I have this certification. I did get my PhD in counseling. I did do all of these things, right? And so it helps then to dispute those core beliefs. But the first part is you have to identify them and speak them out loud.
So I see rotten eggs as themes and events, and then broken records as the core beliefs and thoughts about ourselves, some of which can be really distorted, that arise as a result of those rotten eggs we've experienced, right?
Yes. And part of that, in the last time we were together, we talked about putting together that timeline, but also to put together like I'm gonna call it a cheat sheet for our viewers and our listeners to do that. And on that, we'll have the explanations of each of these too, so that as they're working through their inventories and identifying, it's broken down so that it's easy to understand.
Perfect.
And
so what follows after rotten eggs and broken records?
Yeah, so now you've done your stories and you've identified your themes or your rotten eggs, and you have looked at your core beliefs or your broken records. And I think we called it broken records too, because if you think of a record, it just cycles around and around and around, right?
And I wonder, Marybeth, for how many of our younger audience, I wonder if that even makes sense. Because the image that you and I have in mind, and some of our audience will relate to this, some of them don't, is the record, right? That was playing, and all of a sudden it would go, and it would repeat the same sentence over and over again. And you knew that you needed to lift the needle and change the needle so that it would stop doing that. I don't know, with the advent of so much technology, whether there are broken records anymore, scratch sheet CDs or whatever you call them now, because everything is digital, but it was a thing in our time.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about it. We're dating ourselves with this because it's sort of.
But then we're also telling our story, so it's too late to worry about dating ourselves.
It is, yeah. Well, I know, and if you really want to get really crazy, I mean, I remember black and white TV, and I remember a rotary phone, where you had to dial your phone. So, yeah.
I even worse, I remember when you could buy a bottle of Coca-Cola for 15 cents. So
Oh, yeah.
there you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, there you have
We're
it.
old, girlfriend. We're old.
We're old. But with age comes wisdom.
You got
So,
it. You got it.
yeah,
And for
age
some of
comes
us
wisdom.
also, eyelashes.
Yes, and beautiful eyelashes. Okay, so you've identified all those things, and now I like to say, now what? So now what do we do, right? You lay in the street like with a broken leg and complain, or do you do some healing and jump up and do that? And so part of that is I think we identified, and I'm sure there's more than 7, but we just did the number 7 steps to repair your broken record, right? And so, and we're gonna get really like into that in a few episodes, and we'll explain all of those steps. But you got to do some healing, and with that are some steps you need to take to do that healing. And part of it, if you've gotten this far, is you've already identified this. That's step 1, is getting the knowledge and the self-awareness and all of that stuff, to know what's going on. That's really step 1. And then step 2 is going to be like, now what? What do I do with this? And you have, at this point, you do have a decision. You can lay in the street with your broken leg and blame people. That is a choice. Or you can decide to make changes, and like we said, healing is a choice. So you do have a decision to make at that time.
Big time. I remember a client told me once, I have every right to be angry and stay angry. And I said, you are absolutely right. The question is not whether you have the right to be angry and stay angry. The real question is, what will that do to you? Because it's not going to do anything to the people that have hurt you. It's going to hurt you. And that's the decision.
Yeah, that's the yes, and you're right. You have that right. You can stay angry and live like that, but really, is that the life you want to live? Is that where you want to stay? And I think that's the decision. It's like, how is that working for you? Do you want to stay angry, and do you want to go from 0 to 100 every time something triggers you? Do you want to be filled with anxiety all the time over issues, or do you want to say, no, I'm going to choose to make some changes, and kind of move forward and live
Exactly.
the life
Do you want to lose your marriage? Whether it's the first one, the second one, or the third one, because sometimes we don't stop at one. Do you want to lose the relationship with your children? Do you want to not advance in your career because you keep having negative interactions with customers? And I mean, it doesn't matter from what angle you look at it, untreated broken records will lead to your self-destruction, and you have the power to do something about it.
Yep, you do. And I think that's getting the people that are listening to understand that you do have a choice. You don't have to stay a victim. And I know a lot of times when you talk about like controlling your thoughts, people will say to me like, I can't help it. It just popped into my head. I can't help it. I have no control over that. And to which point I say, that's not true, right? So you do have control. It's not that it's easy to learn to control it. It takes some practice and it takes some effort, but you can do it and you can overcome it. I mean, I've done it. I know, Jenny, you've done it.
And I was one of those that I remember telling you, Marybeth, this is hard work. I remember, we don't have to go into detail, but I remember you giving me techniques on how to redirect my thoughts. And I remember coming back to you and saying, this is exhausting. I am exhausted.
Yeah.
But I promise you guys that it is worth the effort.
Yeah. And I like to tell people, like, it took me almost a full year of consistent practice to stop what I call my circus brain. Like I would get in there and things were jumping all over, and I just was like, I felt almost crazy at times. And so it was like, but it took me a year of trying different techniques till I found something that worked for me, of consistent practice to do it. And I think you gave a great analogy a couple episodes ago, was planes use most of their gasoline, right, at takeoff and landing. That's when most of the effort is exerted. Once you're
Mhm.
up here, it's kind of smooth sailing. And so, yeah, the takeoff is the rough part, but you can get to the point where it's like, I don't even think about it anymore. I do it naturally now because I practice enough.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so that gets you to the 7 steps to repair. I'll give you a couple of them in there just to keep people interested. The second one is establish firm boundaries. Jenny, that's a good one for you because you had to learn that. Creating healthy support system. Choose the way that you speak and listen. That's a really good one. We'll get into that more. And then one of my favorites is Jenny calls it fail better, and I call it suck less tomorrow. So, as you go on this journey, you are going to fail
Yes,
and you
yes,
are
yes,
going to fall down, right?
yes, yes.
And so it's a get back up and learn from the failure. Well, that didn't work. I'm going to get back up and do it again. And I call it like, okay, I'm gonna suck less tomorrow. I didn't do so good today, but tomorrow I'm gonna choose to try again and get back up. And that can be applied to so many areas of your life, right? You
For
can take
sure.
that principle to weight loss and healthy eating and your relationships. You can just say like, oh, I really screwed that one up today, but I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna do better tomorrow. So yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. And then the last one is clean up your mess or try to. And that's looking at like, have I hurt anybody in the past because of the things that I've done and I need to go clean that up? And there's places where I need to have self-forgiveness. Do I need to forgive myself for some things? And forgive others, and just looking back and kind of fixing some of those areas. And then the last part of this is moving forward, or moving beyond your mess type of a thing, right? So now that we've kind of done some healing, what does the future look like for us? And I think we've identified another 7. I guess we liked the number 7 when we were doing this
The number of
framework.
perfection.
The number of perfection. So then we talk about, now what do I do to move forward? And some things in there is like, be kind to yourself, let go of the past, staying positive or persevering or having grit. Those are the types of things that you're going to need to kind of move forward and move beyond your story. Because
This is
again, you
super
are
exciting,
going,
Marybeth. Super exciting.
it's going to be fun. It's going to be some fun stuff. And so again, you guys are going to write in and say, hey, you know what? I think I have a story to tell, and I would like to share it with the hopes of healing myself and also maybe helping somebody else along the way.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing is like you, this is what Marybeth and I do with individuals, right? I mean, so we all together are receiving free coaching and therapy. And those 7 steps of healing the broken records, and those 7 steps of moving forward may look a little different depending on which story we're looking at. But
Yep.
you are going to receive healing and good coaching as a result of sharing your story. And those of us that are listening to your story are going to also be receiving coaching through your experiences. And we are going to be able to relate to 1, 2, 3 or more stories, and to 1, 2, 3 or more coaching advice. And this is, we are all going to be stronger because of this. And we're going to be an agent of change within our own families, our own circles. So it's going to be an amazing thing.
Well, right. And I know that I still, even though I do this for a living, I still learn and grow from hearing my clients' stories. You know, I
Absolutely.
learn things from them and that helped me in my life. And so I think to also know like that's just a journey you're on for life of how you continue to learn and grow from others, and that's just the beauty of being in community with people.
It really, really is. Marybeth, before we go, let's talk, number that framework of discussion one more time. Number one
is the story inventory or your story timeline, identifying your stories.
Okay.
And then number two is once you have all your stories down, you're going to look for themes or repeating events that happen, like loss or chaos or trauma or change. Those would be like theme ideas. And then you get to broken records. So that gets to your way your thinking works or your core beliefs. So things like I'm not smart enough. I have to earn my love. People are temporary. Those are kind of, core beliefs, for lack of a better word.
Exactly.
And
Number
then,
four.
So then 4, you have the 7 steps to repair your broken record. And then the 7 steps to move forward for your healing.
Beautiful. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
If you have not yet written to us that you want to share your story, please do. You have our email address at the beginning of the podcast, and at the end, we will repeat our email address. If you are just catching us now, and this is the first episode that you hear, well, first and foremost, welcome to the family of Tell Your Story. Second, make sure that you check our playlist and prior episodes so that you can get caught up with what we've been doing. And of course, if you are needing help, specialized help, and you believe that the podcast is helping you, but that you need something else, and you do not yet have a coach or a therapist or a counselor, don't forget that using the same email, you can reach out to Marybeth and or myself, because we are here and we're willing to help you out too.
Yes, for sure. That's what we love to do. So yeah, well, I look forward to hearing from our listeners and our viewers and getting to know them a little bit more through their stories. Till next time, I hope everybody has a great day and week, and I'm going to go enjoy the sunny Tucson weather.
And I will keep wrap up because it's 50 degrees and that's way too cold. Bye to all our friends. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.